Have you ever just looked at someone really successful and wondered, why them? Like, why not me?
Yeah, I think we all have at some point. It's a very natural human reaction.
Right, because you watch people build these incredible businesses or, achieve financial freedom, and they just seem to have this perfect life.
And they stay so disciplined too. That's the part that always gets people.
Exactly. Meanwhile, you're sitting there working hard, trying your absolute best, and it just feels like you're standing in the exact same place.
Which is incredibly frustrating. It feels like you're missing some sort of secret code.
Well, today, we are actually going to look at that code. We're doing a deep dive into an excerpt from a framework called The Architecture of Achievement, and I'll warn you right up front, it's going to completely dismantle almost everything society tells us about how success actually works.
Oh, it completely tears it down because, the societal narrative around achievement is just fundamentally broken.
It really is. We're force-fed this idea that success is just a matter of luck or innate talent.
Like you have to be touched by the universe or win some genetic lottery.
Right, but our source material today operates as this psychological blueprint. It completely strips away all the romanticism of the chosen few.
I love that phrase, the chosen few, because the text demands that we confront our own biology and, frankly, our own defense mechanisms.
Yeah, those ego defense mechanisms are huge, and that's exactly where the text begins its offensive. It just hits you with this unyielding truth right out of the gate.
That success is not reserved for a chosen few.
Exactly. It isn't a gift handed to lucky people, and it's not something you're born with. The text argues that success is built.
Built. That's such a specific, intentional word.
It is. It says it's created through thousands of small decisions that nobody sees.
Which is, it's deeply countercultural. Because culturally, we are just completely obsessed with the finish line.
Oh, 100%. We admire the millionaire. We applaud the athlete holding the trophy.
We praise the entrepreneur who built the billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
We have an entire media ecosystem dedicated to showcasing the result.
Right, the flashy result.
But we completely ignore the process. And the text is incredibly explicit about what that process actually entails. It lists this out. Years of loneliness, failure, rejection, sacrifice, and relentless discipline.
The word loneliness in that list really caught my attention.
Yeah,
because it doesn't just say the process is hard or exhausting. It specifically says years of loneliness. Why does building this architecture have to be inherently lonely?
Well, it comes down to the sociological reality of what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Those thousands of micro decisions the text mentions.
Yeah.
They happen when there is absolutely no audience. There is no applause when you wake up at 5 a.m. to study for a certification.
No one is throwing a parade for you.
Exactly. There's no crowd cheering when you choose to read a really dense, difficult book instead of, watching 3 hours of a streaming series.
Yeah.
But it actually goes deeper than just the absence of an audience.
How so?
When you begin making those micro decisions, you're actively deviating from the herd.
And humans are herd animals, obviously.
The vast majority of the herd is seeking immediate comfort. So when you stop seeking comfort and you start seeking growth, you become an outlier.
You're breaking the rules of the group.
Evolutionarily, deviating from the herd triggers a social ostracization alarm in your brain. Your friends might not understand why you can't go out on a Friday night.
Or your family might question why you're pouring all your savings into a side business.
Exactly. The loneliness is the psychological fiction of pulling away from the gravitational pull of average behavior.
Wow, so it's a literal biological friction.
It is. And it's much easier for us to just believe in the illusion of the chosen few. If we can convince ourselves that the person holding the trophy just, won a genetic lottery,
then we don't have to try.
It absolves us of the responsibility to even enter the arena.
Okay, wait, hold on though. I want to play devil's advocate here because I'm looking at the real world and I can't ignore the fact that some people just start on third base.
Sure, absolutely.
So how does this absolute claim that success isn't something you're born with, how does that account for inherited wealth or extreme privilege? Because starting lines are objectively different. We can't pretend everyone is playing the exact same game, right?
No, you're completely right. That's the glaring question. But we have to look really closely at what the text is actually deconstructing here.
Okay.
It is not denying that asymmetrical advantages exist. It's deconstructing our reliance on those advantages as the sole explanation for extraordinary achievement.
Ah, I see.
Let's use the architecture concept. You can be handed a massive pile of premium imported bricks by your parents.
Must be nice.
Right.
Yeah.
But having the bricks does not build the house. The architecture still requires the discipline to lay those bricks one by one with precision over years. If you lack the invisible architecture of discipline, you just have a pile of bricks that will eventually erode.
You know what that makes me think of?
What's that?
Construction of a massive skyscraper. Like you look at something like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. When we walk past these mega structures, we just marvel.
We look at the spire piercing the clouds.
Exactly. We are entirely fixated on the height, but we completely ignore the bedrock. To build the Burj Khalifa, they had to spend years, literally years, drilling nearly 200 massive concrete piles over 160 feet deep into the earth.
Just a subterranean nightmare of mud and noise.
Right. Crushing pressure, deafening noise. And there is no ribbon cutting ceremony for pouring concrete into a hole in the dirt.
No one is taking a selfie with the mud.
No. It's unglamorous, invisible, lonely work. But if the engineers had stopped drilling at 50 feet because it was too difficult or because they wanted to start installing the shiny glass sooner.
The wind shears at 2,000 feet would snap the building in half.
Exactly. The visible height is entirely dependent on the invisible depth.
Which is a profoundly liberating realization for you, the listener. It means you are not excluded from building something extraordinary just because you weren't handed the premium bricks.
You can still dig the hole.
You have the ability to dig into the dirt. You have the capacity to build the subterranean foundation. But, the flip side of that liberation is terror.
Because you have no excuses left.
Right. Once you realize you can dig, your safety net of excuses is instantly vaporized. If it's not just luck, then the stagnant nature of your current situation is on you.
You have to pick up the shovel. Man, that is heavy. And if we accept that premise, we need to understand what actually fuels this building process. Because if success is this invisible architecture, what's the energy source?
Well, the text provides a massive, blaring warning right here.
It really does. It says we have to completely abandon what people consider primary. It demands that we forget the concept of motive entirely.
Forget the idea that motivation will change your life.
When I read that, it felt like an attack on an entire sector of our culture. We have a multi-billion-dollar industry built entirely on selling motivation.
We do, and it is largely selling a placebo.
A placebo? Really?
Yes. To understand why the text warns us against motivation, we have to break down what motivation actually is from a neurochemical perspective.
Okay, break it down.
Motivation is an emotion. It is primarily driven by a spike in dopamine when we anticipate a reward.
So it's literally just a chemical hit.
Exactly. You watch an incredible documentary, or you listen to a powerful speech and your brain visualizes a better future. That visualization triggers a dopamine release, which makes you feel energized, you feel motivated.
But the problem with dopamine is that it clears out of your system, right?
Very quickly. Emotions have a short half-life. They are volatile, reactionary, and completely dependent on your external environment and your internal physiology.
So it's fleeting.
Highly fleeting. The motivation you feel at 8 p.m. on a Sunday night after watching a movie that will completely evaporate by 6 a.m. on Monday morning when it's raining, you're sleep deprived, and your alarm goes off.
Yeah, the Sunday night motivation is a real phenomenon.
It is. And if you are relying on that motivation to fuel your actions, you are building your skyscraper on shifting sand. You cannot rely on a temporary neurochemical state to sustain a multi-year architectural project.
And the text takes it even further. It tells us to forget the fantasy that one perfect opportunity will suddenly appear, or that we should wait for the right mood or the right time.
Which is a direct assault on perfectionism.
How so?
Well, in clinical psychology, we often see perfectionism not as a standard of excellence, but as an advanced form of avoidance.
Wait, perfectionism is avoidance?
Oh, absolutely. Waiting for the right mood or perfect circumstances is a highly sophisticated fantasy designed by your prefrontal cortex to keep you comfortable, all while tricking you into feeling like you're being responsible.
Like you're just planning, you're just preparing.
Right. If you are waiting for the perfect time to start a business or the perfect time to get in shape, you are guaranteeing you will never do it. The perfect time is an illusion. There is only time and what you do with it.
But wait, let's look at the mechanics of opportunity for a second. Sure. The text says to forget the fantasy that one perfect opportunity will suddenly appear. But serendipity is a real phenomenon. People do catch lucky breaks. A perfect opportunity can genuinely materialize out of nowhere, right?
They absolutely do. But we have to define what a lucky break actually looks like when it hits reality. A sudden opportunity is completely worthless and sometimes even destructive if you haven't built the capacity to seize it.
Okay, that makes me think of big wave surfing.
Surfing, okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, like you're sitting out there in the ocean. You don't just buy a surfboard on a Tuesday. Paddle out on your very first day, sit in the water, and wait for a perfect 50-foot monster wave to come to you.
No, you definitely don't.
Because if you do, and that serendipitous perfect wave actually arrives, it is going to crush you. It might literally kill you.
Because the opportunity becomes a threat if you lack the architecture to handle the kinetic energy.
Exactly. The surfers who ride those waves, they've spent a decade in choppy, freezing water. They spent years learning how to paddle, how to control their breath, how to read the subtle shifts in the wind.
Thousands of hours of invisible discipline.
Right, so that when that perfect wave finally arrives, their discipline allows them to survive it and ride it. The wave is serendipity, but the ability to ride the wave is the architecture.
And that highlights the core danger of the motivation industry. Modern society markets motivation as a consumable product.
We just keep buying it.
We live in this endless loop of watching the surfing videos, getting the dopamine hit of imagining ourselves riding the wave, but we absolutely refuse to get into the cold water.
Wow, we just watched the videos on the beach.
Exactly. The text is aggressively pulling us out of that loop. It's telling us that motivation, perfect timing, and right circumstances are myths. Extraordinary lives are built on habits, choices, and discipline.
Which brings us to the actual battleground. If we discard motivation and we stop waiting for perfect timing, where does the real work begin?
It begins at the absolute micro level.
Right. According to our sources, it begins the very first moment you open your...
The daily micro battle. This is where the framework becomes highly granular. It posits that every single morning, you are faced with a brutal binary decision. You have two choices: choose comfort or choose growth.
Comfort feels good today. Growth builds a better tomorrow.
Yes.
And the text points out the painful reality that most people choose comfort because it's easy. It's easy to hit the snooze button. It's easy to spend 2 hours scrolling through social media before your feet even touch the...
To understand why it's so incredibly difficult to choose growth in that moment, we have to look at a concept in behavioral economics called the temporal discount factor.
Okay, what is the temporal discount factor exactly?
Temporal discounting is the phenomenon where the human brain devalues a reward the further away it is in the...
Okay, so $1 today is worth more than $2 next year.
Exactly. We are evolutionarily wired to prioritize immediate, tangible rewards over delayed, abstract gratification. If you were a hunter-gatherer and you found a source of dense calorie, your brain demanded you consume it immediately.
Because you might literally starve tomorrow.
Right. So our brains are hardwired for instant gratification to keep us alive. Fast forward to the modern world, and that ancient survival mechanism translates into seeking immediate comfort.
The warmth of the bed.
The extra 20 minutes of sleep, the mindless dopamine hit of scrolling through short-form videos, these provide instant, unearned rewards. Growth, on the other hand, requires burning valuable energy right now for a reward you might not see for 5 years.
So it's a biological mismatch.
Completely. When your alarm goes off, your prefrontal cortex, the logical long-term planning part of your brain, is still waking up. But your ancient calorie-conserving survival brain is wide awake, screaming at you to stay in the cave.
So the snooze button is literally a biological trap.
It is a neurological hack. Furthermore, when you hit snooze, you are interrupting your sleep cycle and fragmenting your REM sleep, which induces a state of sleep inertia.
So it actually makes you more tired.
You are chemically ensuring that you will feel more groggy and less capable of tackling the day. When the text says, everyone wants success, very few want the process, it is defining the process as the active, daily rejection of that biological comfort. You have to fight your own nervous system every single morning.
But let's be realistic here. Isn't comfort necessary for survival in the modern world?
How do you mean?
Well, if we are constantly, relentlessly choosing growth, engaging in this high-friction battle against our biology, don't we just completely burn out? Like, we need to rest, don't we?
We do, but we have to clearly define our terms here. Rest is not the same as the comfort the text is warning against.
What's the difference?
Rest is strategic recovery. It is intentionally stepping away to allow your nervous system to reset, your muscles to repair, and your brain to consolidate information. It's sharpening the saw so you can cut down the tree tomorrow. The comfort being critiqued here is escapism. It is the mindless, compulsive avoidance of the friction you know you need to face.
Ah, I see the distinction. It's like a comfort credit card.
A comfort credit card, I like that.
Yeah, choosing to hit the snooze button, or avoiding a difficult conversation with a partner, or mindlessly scrolling instead of working on a project that feels amazing in the moment. You're swiping the card, getting that instant hit of evolutionary dopamine.
But it is a credit card.
Exactly. Eventually, the bill comes due, and it comes with massive compound interest. And that interest takes the form of a stagnant life. You wake up 5 years later, you're in the exact same apartment, dealing with the exact same problems, and the debt of all those tiny, comfortable choices is just crushing you.
And that is the exact stagnant sensation the text addressed at the very beginning. The feeling that you're just standing in the exact same place while working hard is the entropy of inaction.
Entropy of inaction.
In physics, entropy dictates that closed systems naturally move from order to disorder. If you do nothing, you don't just stay the same, you decay.
Wow.
So for anyone listening right now, this is the mirror the text is holding up. Think about the exact sequence of choices you made within the first 30 minutes of waking up today. Did you reach for your phone before you even got out of bed? Did you hit snooze?
Were those actions a conscious vote for your future, or were they a reflexive swipe of the comfort credit card?
Exactly.
That is a brutal mirror to look into, because when we inevitably fail that morning micro battle, and we all do, right? The brain is incredibly powerful. When we fail, our ego immediately steps in to protect us from the shame of our own inaction.
Always.
We don't want to admit that we just chose the easy way out, that we let our Stone Age brain win. So we build a defense mechanism. We make excuses.
Which is the next major pillar of this framework. The heavy anchor of excuses and the absolute necessity of extreme responsibility. The text states very clearly that it is easy to blame the economy, your family, your past, your education, or bad luck.
Excuses are comfortable. Responsibility is difficult. Calling an excuse comfortable is fascinating. We usually think of excuses as justifications, but they really are a comfort mechanism. It's like a warm psychological blanket you throw over your own.
In the 1950s, the psychologist Julian Rotter developed a concept called the locus of control, which perfectly explains this dynamic.
Oh, I've heard of this. Internal and external, right?
Exactly. A locus of control can be internal or external. An external locus of control is the fundamental belief that the world happens to you. The economy's terrible, your boss is out to get you, your parents didn't set you up for success.
Everything is outside of your control.
When you hold an external locus, you are entirely powerless. But, and this is the insidious part, you are also safe from blame. The ego loves an external locus, because if your failure is the economy's fault, you don't have to do the grueling, painful work of changing your own behavior.
But the alternative is the internal locus of control, the belief that you happen to the world. The source text says, the moment you stop blaming everything around you, the moment you accept complete responsibility for your future, your life starts.
And pay close attention to the caveat it provides immediately after that sentence. It says, not overnight, not magically, but permanently.
Why highlight that it's...
Because taking responsibility does not alter your external reality instantaneously. Your bank account doesn't magically inflate the moment you decide to stop blaming the Federal Reserve.
Exactly, no.
Right, the magic isn't real. But the shift in your locus of control is permanent because it fundamentally rewires your perception of friction. When you have an internal locus of control, an obstacle ceases to be a valid excuse to quit and instead becomes a puzzle you are obligated to solve.
Okay, I have to bring reality into this for a second, because this is where a lot of people push back against self-imposed.
Let's hear it.
Let's talk about genuine trauma. Let's talk about systemic barriers. Some people are dealing with horrific family situations, devastating health issues, or, sudden economic collapse. Is this text suggesting that we adopt a toxic positivity mindset and pretend those horrific things don't exist?
No, and this is a critical nuance, and a place where the concept of extreme responsibility is often weaponized or misunderstood.
Right, because it can sound like victim blaming.
Exactly, but the text is not suggesting that trauma isn't real or that systemic barriers are fair. It is not a moral judgment on your suffering.
Right.
What it is saying is purely pragmatic. Blaming those factors, even when your blame is 100% mathematically and morally justified, it strips you of your agency.
So it's the difference between acknowledging a massive weight on your back and refusing to walk because of it.
Yes.
The weight is real. It's completely unfair that you have to carry 80 pounds of trauma while the person next to you is carrying nothing.
Absolutely unfair.
But if you sit down on the path and say, I refuse to take another step until the universe comes down here and takes this unfair weight off me, you are going to be sitting in the dirt for the...
That is exactly the pragmatic reality. The universe is entirely indifferent to what is fair. If you want your life to improve, you have to walk with the weight. Imagine the terrifying, paradigm-shifting moment when a human being fully stops blaming others.
It's a heavy moment.
The sudden crushing weight of realizing, if my life is going to get better, it is 100% up to me, regardless of whose fault it is that I am in this current nightmare. That is a frightening realization. It induces vertigo. but it is the only place where true functional power begins.
It is a terrifying liberation. So let's say you take that leap. You accept total responsibility, you stop hitting the snooze button, you start digging the foundation, you commit to the process.
Right.
This brings us face to face with what the source calls society's most dangerous lie, the myth of the timeline, the myth of how long the architecture actually takes to build.
The deconstruction of the overnight success. The text argues that one of the most toxic lies we are fed is that success should happen quickly.
And it is a lie that is pumped into our retinas every single day. We are bombarded with stories of overnight millionaires, instant fame, viral phenomenons, and sudden breakthroughs.
Everywhere you look.
You open your phone, and the algorithm shows you a 22-year-old doing a house tour of a mansion they bought by trading crypto for a month. It completely warps your baseline for reality.
It is a severe distortion caused by the attention economy. The media's entire business model relies on harvesting your attention, and the human brain is wired to pay attention to the spectacular, the sudden, and the novel.
We like shiny objects.
Exactly. No one is going to click on a video titled, "Watch this accountant quietly study for a certification for 4 hours a day for 6 years." We only see the viral moment, the sudden explosion of wealth or popularity.
And that creates survivorship bias, doesn't it?
A massive cognitive bias, yes. We see the one lottery winner and assume buying lottery tickets is a viable career path, while remaining completely blind to the millions of losing tickets buried in the landfill. The text grounds us by stating, every overnight success usually spent years working in silence, years when nobody believed in them, years when they doubted themselves.
That media distortion creates such a toxic expectation for all of us. People start a new project, they hit the gym, they start a side hustle, and they quit after 5 weeks because they haven't gone viral yet, or they haven't seen a massive transformation in the mirror. They think something is broken.
What is broken is our psychological stamina. We have lost the capacity to work in silence.
Working in silence, that's a powerful phrase.
As we discussed earlier, working without external validation, without the dopamine hits of likes and applause, is incredibly difficult. True commitment means functioning when your family doesn't get it, when your friends think you're wasting your time, and when there is absolutely zero empirical evidence that what you are doing is actually going to work.
It makes me think of the analogy of the Chinese bamboo tree.
Oh, the bamboo tree, yeah.
Yeah, you plant the seed, you water it, you fertilize the soil, and for the first year, nothing happens. Nothing breaks the second year, you water it, nothing. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, you are staring at a patch of empty dirt for 5 years.
Which requires insane discipline.
Right. But then in the fifth year, within a span of about 6 weeks, the bamboo shoots up 90 feet into the air. Now, society looks at that and calls the 6 weeks an overnight success. They completely ignore the 5 years the tree spent underground, developing this massive invisible root system that was necessary to support a 90-foot tree.
Exactly. If the tree hadn't spent 5 years building the roots in silence, it would have tumbled over the moment it started growing. And if we connect this to the listener's experience, how many times have you abandoned a project, a diet, a workout routine, or a new skill because you didn't see results in a month?
You stopped watering the dirt.
You stopped drilling into the bedrock because you couldn't see the glass spire, completely oblivious to the fact that you were still in the foundational phase.
And when you were in that phase, when you were drilling in the mud, working in silence for years, you aren't just sitting there passively waiting for time to pass. According to the text, you are constantly hitting bedrock. You are actively failing.
Yes.
Which introduces a massive paradigm shift in the source material, the cognitive rebranding of failure, and the development of the champion's reflex.
This is arguably the most counterintuitive and psychologically demanding part of the entire framework. It states point blank, failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is part of success.
Part of it.
Not a detour from it.
Right. It asserts that every mistake teaches something, every setback builds resilience, and every obstacle develops character. And then it introduces this aggressive, almost militant framing technique.
Yeah, the repetition is striking. It says, if you've failed before, good. It means you're trying. If you've been rejected, good. It means you're stepping outside your comfort zone. If life has knocked you down, good. Because every champion has been knocked down.
That is an exercise in active cognitive reframing. It is designed to transform emotional pain into cold, hard data.
Pain into data. I love that.
When you experience a failure, you lose a client, you fail a test, your business goes bankrupt, the default human emotional response is shame, frustration, and a deeply ingrained desire to quit to avoid further pain. By violently forcing the word good onto the failure, you are short-circuiting your amygdala's fear response.
You're hijacking your own brain.
You are taking back executive control. It is an acknowledgement that the friction you just experienced is the precise mechanism required for growth.
It really is the mechanics of resilience. Think about how human physiology works. If you want to grow a bicep, you don't grow it by lifting a 2-pound weight comfortably a few times a week.
No, that won't do anything.
The muscle only grows when it is subjected to intense resistance, when it is stressed beyond its current capacity, and when the muscle fibers physically tear. The tearing is the failure.
And the recovery process is where the growth actually occurs.
Right. If you don't physically tear the muscle through failure, you remain weak forever.
And neuroplasticity works in a very similar way. When you struggle and fail at a complex task, your brain releases neuromodulators like acetylcholine and epinephrine, which mark the neural circuits for change. The obstacle develops character in the exact same way resistance develops muscle density. The text emphasizes the deciding factor. The difference is, champions get back up.
Okay, but let's step out of the theoretical for a second.
Okay.
It's easy for us to sit here on microphones and confidently say, good when discussing failure abstractly. But in the real world, in the heat of the moment, failure feels devastating. When you get fired or publicly humiliated, it physically hurts.
It does.
So how do you practically adopt this good mindset when you are in the middle of a panic attack about your failure?
You have to systematically detach your identity from the outcome. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this is called decatastrophizing the event. You have to train yourself to view the failure not as a personal indictment of your inherent worth as a human being, but as an experiment that yielded negative results. You didn't fail as a person, your hypothesis failed. Now you have new data.
I love that. It makes me think of playing a notoriously difficult video game like Elden Ring or Dark Souls.
Oh, absolutely.
You spend an hour fighting your way to the boss level, you step into the arena, and the boss completely obliterates your character in 12 seconds. When that happens, you don't throw your controller through the television and say, I am a worthless human being who doesn't deserve to exist.
No, and the cognitive behavioral term for what you do next is crucial. You strip the emotion out of the encounter and turn it into data. You say, now I know its attack pattern.
Exactly. You say, okay, the boss swings his giant sword twice, pauses for half a second, and then breathes fire. Next time, I will dodge left on the fire. You learn the mechanics, you adapt your strategy, and you try again. The failure wasn't a judgment, it was simply the tuition you had to pay to learn the attack pattern.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy. And if we look at the inverse of this, consider what happens to a person who has never failed. Think about someone who has always chosen the path of least resistance, always stayed in the comfortable lane, and has never faced the tearing of the muscle or the strike of the boss.
They would be incredibly fragile. A stiff breeze would knock them out.
Precisely. The text heavily implies that without failure, you lack resilience and character. The great tragic irony of human psychology is that avoiding failure, which feels like the smartest, safest evolutionary strategy, is actually the most dangerous thing you can do to your long-term potential.
Wow.
Because when a real storm finally hits, your skyscraper has no bedrock foundation. It just topples.
Avoiding failure is the most dangerous thing you can do. Man, okay, so you are failing, you're getting knocked down, you are deciphering the boss's attack pattern, and you are trying again. But here is the massive roadblock.
What's that?
How do you find the confidence to keep taking action when you keep getting knocked down? This leads us into what I think is the most mind-bending, counterintuitive part of the entire source text.
The confidence paradox.
Yes, the confidence paradox. The text says confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes after repeated action. You don't become confident by thinking, you become confident by doing.
This paragraph single-handedly destroys how 99% of people approach their goals. Most people live under the delusion that they need to wait until they feel confident before they start.
We all do it.
They buy 5 books about starting a business, they watch endless tutorials, they draft meticulous plans, and they wait for this magical, warm feeling of confidence to wash over them so they can finally take the leap.
Which guarantees they never start. Because according to this framework, confidence is the byproduct of having done the thing. You cannot chemically possess the byproduct without having gone through the process.
Let's analyze the progression the text outlines, because it perfectly mirrors how the brain's active inference models work. It says, the first workout feels difficult. The 100th workout feels normal. The first speech feels terrifying. The 50th speech feels natural. The first business attempt feels risky. Years later, calculated risks become your lifestyle.
Terrifying to risky to normal to natural to a lifestyle.
Yes, your brain is a prediction engine. Its primary biological function is to minimize surprise, because in the ancestral environment, surprise usually equaled death.
Right.
So when you stand backstage before giving your very first public speech, your brain searches its historical database. It asks, have we done this before? No. Do we have empirical evidence that we will survive this? No. Therefore, it classifies the event as a severe biological threat.
It thinks you're about to be eaten.
It stimulates the amygdala. It floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. You experience this as sheer terror or crushing self-doubt.
So the feeling of I'm not ready isn't a mystical intuition, it's just a biological false alarm.
Exactly. It's an outdated software glitch. But when you give the speech 50 times and you survive every single time without being eaten by a predator, your brain updates its prediction model. It physically rewires its neural pathways, a process called myelination, to classify giving a speech as a safe, routine activity. The cortisol response vanishes, replaced by a state of calm.
And that calm is what we call confidence.
Precisely.
But here is the ultimate catch-22. If you require action to build confidence, how do you take the very first action when your amygdala is screaming at you, you are flooded with cortisol, and you have absolutely zero confidence?
The text provides the answer in a very short, uncompromising sentence. They act despite fear.
They act despite fear. It makes me think of jumping into a freezing cold swimming pool. You know that agonizing feeling when you're standing on the edge, dipping your toe in, and the water is ice cold? Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. You can stand on the deck for an hour. You can read a book about the thermodynamics of water. You can visualize being warm. You can try to psych yourself up, but you cannot think your way into feeling warm.
You cannot. The only mechanism for acclimation is total immersion.
You just have to endure the shock of the cold. You jump in, it's terrifying, it takes your breath away, it's highly uncomfortable. But only after you are fully submerged in the water, moving around, does your body adjust. Your circulation kicks in, your blood vessels constrict, and suddenly the water feels completely fine. The confidence is your body adjusting to the water. But you had to take the plunge while you were still shivering on the deck.
That is the purest definition of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the cognitive assessment that something else is more important than the fear. So for the listener right now, this is the practical ethic. Identify something in your life that you are actively putting off right now because you don't feel ready yet. A difficult conversation you need to have, a resignation letter you need to send, a new project you need to launch. Remind yourself that you will never feel ready. The feeling of readiness is a biological, you just have to jump in freezing water.
And when you force yourself to take that action repeatedly, despite the visceral fear, something remarkable happens to your neural architecture. It stops being a conscious, agonizing effort of willpower. Terror fades, the neural pathways myelinate, and the action becomes automated.
Which brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this framework, where we see how all of these disparate pieces lock together. The final lines of the text state, everything becomes easier once it becomes a habit, and habits create destiny.
If we synthesize everything we've discussed today, the architecture of achievement is fully visible. We started by destroying the illusion of the finish line, the societal myth that success is a gift or a genetic lottery. We moved down into the dirt, realizing that every morning is a biological battle between the comfort of our Stone Age software and the friction of growth. We learned to throw away the warm blanket of our excuses and shift to an internal locus of control, adopting extreme responsibility.
Taking ownership.
We embraced failure, not as an indictment of our character, but as the mandatory curriculum for resilience. We pushed through the terror of the amygdala's false alarms by taking action despite fear. And all of those steps, repeated over and over, finally crystallize into this habit.
Habit. It's almost unromantic, isn't it? We've replaced the magic, the glitter, and the cinematic flair of luck and destiny with the incredibly mundane, repetitive reality of habits.
It lacks the cinematic flair of a magic wand, certainly. But I would argue it is profoundly more beautiful because it places the locus of power entirely in your own hands. Let's look closely at the gravity of that final phrase, create destiny. Historically, destiny is thought of as fatalism. It is something pre-written in the stars, the Greek fates weaving the thread of your life completely out of your control.
Right, the idea that whatever is going to happen is just going to happen, so why bother fighting it?
But this text radically redefines destiny. It takes destiny out of the hands of the cosmos and places it firmly into the arithmetic of your daily routine. Destiny is not pre-written. It is simply the mathematical sum of your daily habits compounding over time.
That is the most empowering thought possible. You truly are the architect. If destiny is just the sum of your habits, then every single action you take is a literal, tangible vote for the type of person you will become in a decade.
A literal vote.
Hitting the snooze button is a vote for entropy. Reading a chapter of a book is a vote for growth. Dodging the video game boss's attack pattern and trying again is a vote for resilience. And whichever side of the ledger gets the most votes over a 10-year period, that is your destiny.
The invisible architecture we spoke of at the beginning, the thousands of small decisions that nobody sees, those are the habits. That is how the skyscraper is built. one small, unglamorous subterranean drill at a time, executed in the quiet hours when absolutely no one is watching and no one is applauding.
If we zoom out and look at everything we've covered today, the through line is undeniable. Success isn't a gift, it is a constructed reality. Motivation is an unreliable chemical illusion, while discipline is the actual engine of progress.
Absolutely.
The battle is won or lost in the micro decisions between comfort and friction. The overnight success stories are just media distortions hiding years of silent, lonely bedrock drill. Failure is just data collection, and confidence is the reward you get after you jump in.
It is a rigorous, deeply demanding psychological framework. It offers no shortcuts and no comfort.
Yeah.
But it's also deeply hopeful because it means that no matter where you are standing right now, no matter how much weight you are carrying, the raw materials to build something extraordinary are entirely within your reach.
It really is all in your hands. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought that builds on exactly where this text left.
Go for it.
If your habits truly create your destiny, and if a team of researchers followed you around with a camera today, recording every single micro choice you made from the moment your alarm went off until the moment you went to sleep, what destiny would they predict for you?
That is the ultimate metric.
The good news is, if you don't like the answer to that question, your destiny isn't written in stone. You get to wake up tomorrow morning, face that exact same ancient biological choice, and make a different decision. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of your own achievement. See you next time.